using the container usually costs the same or less even than renting and driving in a box truck for a week and a half. Um, Delhi has four 20-foot containers stored at an OSS provider. We started with one. I think that if you have the opportunity to use the 20-foot containers, I do highly recommend it because they're brought in and out by professionals, and it's safer than renting a box truck and giving it to a driver who does not usually drive very large vehicles on very narrow ranch roads. Um, so I've talked a lot about the camps that live out of driving range. Now, if you live within driving range and you're driving it from your garage, you should really be thinking, how can we minimize the number of our vehicles coming to camp, coming to Playa? Because it's greener to reduce the number of vehicles, and it's just more efficient to use one larger vehicle to bring your stuff in than many small hatchbacks. MD, Mark, do you have anything to add to logistics?
Yeah, just after, thank you, Brian, for acknowledging that. So after being now going into my 11th year, I found that having to load my trailer, first few years, it was loading my trailer up here. I live in San Jose, driving it out there, unloading it, loading it back in, coming back to my place here and offloading it again. Moving into a container program, if you have that much stuff for your camp infrastructure, makes it so much easier to have an outside vendor help you get that stuff in there because you only have to deal with it when it's dropped on Playa. You open it up, you use all the things, you pack it back up, they take it back to the storage facility. And it's halved the workload that I normally would have to do if I brought that same. I used to have a 20-foot trailer, so now I don't have to deal with unloading it at my house. So, and the camp has to have enough, I guess, membership to make that work, to make sense, enough campers to make that make sense for you because it is an expense. It's not cheap. You have to usually have to buy the container, which in my case, now we're in year 4 of using these containers, and I absolutely am happy that we're doing it. It's kind of pricey, but the amount of manpower now that it takes to use and not have to build, I mean, not have to unload that thing is huge. It's a great relief. So I definitely want to recommend if you have that much stuff to use a container.
Totally agree. Any other panelists have anything to say about logistics?
So I'm on the opposite end. Barbie, myself, I live in Reno, Nevada, and Barbie Death Village actually has a property in Reno. We call it Barbie Back 40, BB40, where we store all of the Barbies and our 6 trailers that we bring in. We bring in our own trailers, and logistically, it's gotten better for us. We have towers, and we bring in our trailers and we bring them out ourselves. So storage for us has been amazing because we are very fortunate, like I said, to have a location in Reno where everything is, where things can be staged. I don't remember who was talking about that, but I think that's key is having everything staged in whatever storage you need, whatever you're using, having that ready to go prior and just ready to slip out. For Barbie, we used to be located in Central California. I brought everything in 2020 over to Reno and don't regret it at all. Love it. We do not have a large storage that gets delivered because of my position with Playa Resto. I'm already on Playa, so I have to count on things coming and arriving when I expect them to come and arrive. And we are a lot less dependent on OSS, which I know is one of the topics we were going to hit on this as far as delivery and that sort of thing. Uh, on purpose, we believe that radical self-reliance is so important for us, and it works really well. I also see somebody post. I think Brian posted about some of the storage and access costs, and it's great having it, accessible for us.
Thanks, Mom. Yeah, you don't have to use any OSS services, and the radical self-reliance is a principle. Um, Sometimes using an OSS provider does make sense, though, particularly
Mhm.
if you are traveling from
Absolutely.
outside driving range. If you don't want to use an OSS provider, another option, and we'll get to this soon, is joining a hubs that uses OSS service providers and using their backend. We'll be getting into that soon. Do any other panelists want to talk about logistics or move it to Q&A?
Well, I want to throw it out there that some of the East Coast camps, they that have to get equipment gear out here, they actually locally, like I know people from New York and stuff like that, they'll fill a transport truck, tractor trailer rig full of bins and stuff like that. So that's a consideration. Again, if there are mostly newer camps on this workshop right now, they're probably not at that level yet, but that is a thing where people have matched up with other camps as well. Like if you happen to be on the East Coast or Philly or something like that, like I know for a fact I got friends out here in Philadelphia, that will load up a trailer and they can put in as many of those yellow top
Yeah.
bins and tents and da 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 and a
It's called
bicycle.
NYC Container, and they send out 4, sometimes 5 road trailers a year.
Yeah, and so that's helpful if they don't know about that, maybe that's the thing that they can look into and we
100%. If there's any new New York or New York area theme camp leads on this call, and you have any questions about that, please contact me, because we need to add you. New York has a private New York Burning Man camp lead chat when we talk a lot. So we'd love to add you if you're a new theme camp lead. All right. Any questions about logistics from anybody before I move on to hubs? Okay. Hubs were introduced in 2022. And since villages sunsetted last year, it's become relatively more important as those village subcamps need to be their own camp with their own identity with placement and communication with placement. Hubs is essentially a group of camps that have agreed to share their back-end infrastructure, to share the cost, and to share the labor, to make it easier for everybody and cheaper. So the benefits of a well-run hubs run for the right reasons is you can save 15 to 30% on your water, gray water removal, and any other services you may be getting from OSS providers. And that's because of economies of scale. This is in particular very important for new camps, which I believe are limited to 25 or fewer people, or at least size limited as of 2023. If you're a 30-person camp, reinventing the water wheel, the gray water wheel, waste disposal wheel, refrigeration wheel, can be a drag. And you'd rather focus on your interactivity in your first year or second year. So joining a well-run hubs can let you focus on that interactivity and also reduce your cost. The trick is finding the right partners, finding the right hubs lead camp. And to find that camp, the best place to do so is in the Facebook group for the TCOs. Also in Hive, there's, I believe, a subgroup in Hive of camps looking for hubs partners. And the deadline for doing hubs for this year is 5 days away. So if you do want to do a hubs, time is of the essence, and it's time to start having those conversations. A typical hubs will share water and power at the minimum, and sometimes gray water. In Delhi's case, we're a hubs lead camp. There are 5 camps in our hubs total, including us. Our camp is 70 people, but there's 300 people in our hubs. And those people are getting power, water, dumpster service, refrigeration, ice. There's a whole bunch of stuff. And some camps sign up for some and not all. But all of them are signed up for power and water because that guarantees adjacent placement with placement. Does any other panelists have something to say about hubs?
So we actually hub with 2 this year. We're going to hub with 2 other camps, hopefully. Our Barbie Day Spa, who's a New York-based group, which I think you're in touch with, Brian. And they so the only thing we're going to hub on is, of course, the gray water removal. Liminal Labs is joining us this year too with the LED Zeppelin. That'll be over here by Barbie, hopefully this year. We're also going to be sharing water delivery for them, but probably the other resources is we have 1 shower. So having only the 1 large group worried about the shower is really great for those smaller groups. And then we work on it together. But I think the greatest resource for our hub is the people, is the resource of each other. So we do enjoy that, but those are the only things we do to hub. And I know electricity is a big one for most people. And I unfortunately can't speak about that because we do not do a full grid at Barbie. So,
That's a great point, Mom. Having in our hubs of 300 people, one of our sub camps, side piece, they're mostly licensed electricians and plumbers, which
perfect.
is fantastic.
That's great.
And yeah, you just have, and you have, and basically you also get to pick your neighbors,
Yeah.
um, which is very nice. And in Delhi's case, with our hubs, we only allow part of the contract people sign is you're only allowed to run one generator, ours. So it's actually possible to sleep without 40 smaller generators running. Um, it can be really great if everybody has the right intentions and is on board with it. Um, all right. Any other questions about Hubsing or comments about Hubsing from panelists?
If you can do it, do it.
I agree.
Because you also get to share not only manpower. I think, Mom, you mentioned that too. It's like, for example, if you're stuck on erecting something or need a tool, your sister camp or hub camp can also, they can jump in and help you out, and vice versa. When we finish our stuff, we go next door and try to help them out. It really is a a communal effort. So that makes a big difference to have somebody right next to you that can actually help you out. You can just lean over and go, hey, can you spare this or that? And you have that asset right there next to you.
And to Governess's, thank you, Mark. To Governess's point, just being in a hubs or creating in a hubs or asking to be in a hubs, it doesn't guarantee you anything with placement. They still have to approve your camp. They give you your camp dimensions. It's still placement's show. All hubs is doing is sort of, in a sense, making it easier to have a back-end utility for many camps after placement has already said yes to your camp coming and your interactivity and your hours. Any other questions about hubs before we move on to spreadsheets? Okay. Mark Duncan, take it away for spreadsheets.
Well, yeah, I've learned over the years that pretty much everybody knows how to use spreadsheets and stuff like that. And I think that the one thing that's important is just, for me anyway, is having a conduit of connection. I got email, like mine is, I don't have a graphic to show you, but the basics, name, phone number, emails, when are they planning on showing up? And I've also had spreadsheets that were like 50 fields wide or columns wide that got to be a little bit unwieldy. So keep it simple. The core things you need, or just figure it out. What are your basic needs for these spreadsheets? And there's samples available. I couldn't figure out how to actually make a model available. But if anybody wanted to contact me post event, I'm happy to share a blanked out or zeroed out spreadsheet that I use. Maybe it's oversimplified, but it definitely is a good starting point. And of course, in Excel or whatever, you can always add more columns if you really need them. But it's important also for placement, like on-site placement, for when I'm figuring out my schematic for my camp. It's like, how are you rolling in? Are you coming in with just a tent? Are you car camping? Do you have a 40-foot RV? Or do you have a sprinter pulling a 20-foot trailer? You need to know the sizings. So as that stuff gets more clear, because ultimately my placer in my camp, they need to know how to place this stuff, because you can't just let it organically come together, because it'll be a cluster F. So it's important to try to gather some of that intel as you get closer to the event. Because today, for example, I have probably 80 applicants so far for my camp, and I'm not asking them already today in March, like, well, how are you going to roll in? Because a lot of them don't know, because they're renting an RV. They don't know what size RV they're going to get, or trailer or whatever. But it is important to get that information by July, early August, because we have to place, you get an allotted space and you got to fit all that stuff on there. So it's important to get that detail down the road. But just having a solid spreadsheet to get the ball rolling, to find out who's paid dues, which is a topic down the road here, and who's not. And do you have your tickets? Do you not have your tickets? It's like, who you need help with a car pass. I don't want to scare anybody that is a new TCO, but it gets a little crazy out there. And to try to organize all those things, tickets, vehicle passes, who you're going to roll in with, da, 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 da. So there's a lot of details on there that are that can help you can keep it organized. And my biggest last thing on this as a TCO is get somebody else to do it. That's it.
Yep. Yep, delegate or melt down eventually. Any questions about spreadsheets?
Brian, I actually have a question for Mark regarding what he said about his spreadsheet. So, recognizing that the camp layout is a part of the application process, and I believe that's due in about a week or less. If you don't know what size vehicle or tent your applicants are going to bring, how do you effectively build your layout and submit it for approval?
That's a great point. My first year with Delhi in 22, I didn't put RV length limits. There was no rule on length. And some brand new burners showed up with a 52-foot vehicle. So simple rules. I mean, now we have a rule that you can't bring a longer than 30-foot RV if you're even allowed to have an RV. As a new theme camp, have rules around RVs and also make sure that the RVs are paying their fair share, because you don't want to be in a situation where your tent campers are subsidizing the RV people.
Good that we're getting back to recording. So I have a lot of faith and pray a lot that, this stuff, because we don't know, as what time has taught me over these years is that nobody knows what they're unless they already own the vehicle, what size their dimension of truck is, or trailer, or RV. Because people, as they start to getting close to it, they start looking out for renting an RV, and RVs are really hard to rent. Because if the person asks you, are you taking it to Burning Man? They're like, nope, nope. So what will end up happening is that, it's Tetris, and I'm actually really good at it, at Tetrising, and I also have some really solid people who are good at Tetrising. So on faith, we just have to figure it out. Because today I couldn't tell placement or on my application exactly what's going where, because I have no idea of knowing what that is. It's like hitting a target on the other side of the moon at this point for me. But ultimately, it works out. And then, if we have to make adjustments on the fly, we do. Like last year, I had to beg for a little bit of parking space from my next door neighbor who had the space available. It's just getting creative. And my thing is, I believe, like, one of my favorite Burning Man principles is radical inclusion. So however they show up, we're just going to make it work. We're burners. We figure shit out.
Absolutely.
I want to address Lou real quick. One of the things we do at Barbie is, if you're going to apply for early access tickets or DGS tickets or steward sale tickets, whatever they're calling them this year, apologize, that all had to have already been done because the steward sale is over. So as far as Barbie, when we begin our onboarding, we have questions that include your domicile request and information. And that all goes into the nice spreadsheet, which onboards people as part of our form. So in answer to Lou's question, before this deadline that's coming up for placement, I already have a good idea of what we're looking at, because most of my people who receive steward sale tickets have already registered with our camp and have filled out information, including some of the stuff Mark mentioned earlier, name, address, phone number, but also what is your domicile? What are going to be your needs if you need to be near some sort of service or something to that effect? I'm already aware of that for most of our people. And I think it's a great way to have that idea and know what you're dealing with.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to leadership. I'm sorry, leave no trace. And that's Michael and Mom.
Well, Mom is the expert, and she'll go on because she's a wonderful volunteer for half the year or more with the restoration. But the only
I
thing
wish
I'll
I could
say
say
is,
I was a volunteer, but actually I am on the payroll.
oh, right. Well, okay,
Okay.
but she's amazing because she devotes so much time to cleaning us all up. But the key is, as a theme camp organizer, I stress you leave no trace. You're on move patrol from the moment you hit the dust until after you leave, and the entire time I'm not yelling at people, but I'm firmly saying, pick that up or look around. And at every dinner, I'm reminding people that, we can't let it build up. If we let it build up during the 2 weeks, then by the time we strike, when we're all exhausted, we're going to be leaving a mess, and we can't do that. So the entire time, everyone is on move patrol. There's no leave no trace team. Everyone's on the team. And that seems to have worked really well, where our camp's always been in the green. On
Well,
to you,
I have
Mel.
to agree with you, Michael, and 100%. We're always on as far as cleaning up the MOOP. So switching hats for just 2 seconds, I am the administrative coordinator for Playa Restoration. I'm basically the assistant to the Dark Angel. We're out there from way before anyone gets there till way after. 13 weeks last year. That was my time on Playa. But what I'd like to encourage you all is to MOOP. I don't know if you can see, probably not. Come and see us at MOOP Map. Just want to throw this out at you. This is our 5-minute MOOP test. I also want to throw out, in case you didn't know this, not only yourselves as resources, but if you come by MOOP Map, which hoping it'll be at 5:30 in Esplanade again, we can help you with your techniques. We can help you by lending you rakes and magnets and things. You can rent them out just by leaving your name, and we'll give you equipment to help clean. We'll help you with strategies, whatever you need. We like things to be taken care of very well. So come by MOOP Map, come get your 5-minute. It's not really showing because of the background. 5-minute MOOP Map test sticker. And also just throwing out another shameless plug. We need volunteers for Resto. It's really easy. Go to your sparkly things in your burner profile and sign up and help us out at Resto. We can use more people. Oh, also, while you're out there, don't forget we have Recycle Camp. So if you have aluminum, you can take that to Recycle Camp. Last year it was also 5:30, and I think it was between A and Esplanade, and they donate the proceeds to the local schools. So it's a great way to kind of reduce what you're taking out. So thank you very much for everyone's efforts from Playa Resto.
One last suggestion is that we always meet as a camp in the summer because people are mostly Bay Area, but they come from all over. We meet during the summer and just get to know each other if they're newbies or reconnect. But then I have a practice a line sweep, because when you get out there, as say on Sunday or Monday when you're leaving, it's hard to teach people. So we practice a line sweep during our summer get together, so everyone knows that on Sunday when the camp is fully striped, we do a line sweep and we slowly inch our way across the entire camp looking for the smallest piece of MOOP, the wood scraps and the rebar. So that's if you can pull it off and get your camp together beforehand, rehearsing a line sweep it's fun. It's like a line dance.
Your also your choice of trash bag matters because you don't want any trash bag explosions. You should be using 2.5 millimeter minimum contractor bags that are usually bought at Home Depot. Husky has a good brand. It's a yellow and red, yellow box with red text. That's what we use. I believe it's 3 millimeters. Those have never exploded on us. Yeah, just don't use residential grade trash bags unless you're planning on triple bagging it. All right. Any other panelists or anybody have questions about Leave No Trace MOOP? Okay, moving on to leadership. So basically with these theme camps, especially if you're a new theme camp lead, is we have big dreams, but don't do too much because bigger isn't always better. And what that means in practice is please size your playa dreams, your interactivity and or your art for the volunteers your theme camp has, and give your volunteers a reasonable amount of work because we want people to keep burning. And somebody who was overworked as a volunteer one year may not come back, and they might not come back at all. Burning out volunteers on an oversized playa project is a common cause of people saying F Burning Man, and they never come back. A playa dream, and that means interactivity or art without enough volunteers to make it happen on playa, it's not a dream. It can be a nightmare. So choose projects for your camp wisely by asking yourself 3 questions before you say yes to something. Does your project fit your camp's interactivity and culture? Does playa lack your offering or need more of it? By doing a project that needs you to bring more campers to volunteer, can your camp infrastructure handle those additional campers? Basically, you want to make sure that everybody has that reasonable amount of work. A common cause of theme camp friction is you have a successful first year and then you add a whole bunch of stuff in the second and third year. And it's beyond the ability of your group of, let's say 30 people. 30 people could do what you did in 2024, but in 2025, if you add the new carnival ride, that has nothing to do with your original interactivity. Now you need another 30 people. So these are things you need to weigh in your mind. Keeping in mind that as TCO, if your volunteers are overworked, that's kind of your fault. And it started long before Playa with lack of proper planning. That's all I'll say about that. Mom, do you have anything to say?
No, I do appreciate what you're saying as far as like, especially taking care of things inside. You were mentioning the thick bags. I also think it's very important that we make a plan for having different types of, MOOC versus recyclables versus, and then please know where you're taking things also as they depart. I've seen, part of Resto is highway cleanup, but do you know how many groups actually, it's incredible. So many people dump stuff on their way out. Please secure your loads for garbage on the way out. And if you do have a problem, have someone contact us directly, because don't stand out there on the highway. It's dangerous. We have people that are, professionally ready for that. So just communicate and we'll get this place cleaned up and back again every year. Thank you. And this last year, it was incredible. We passed with flying colors. So thanks to everyone for moving.
Thanks for staying out there so long. I mean, you're out there 3 months?
Yeah, it was last year was 13 weeks, from the end of July till the middle of October. MOOP starts at the beginning because we have to get the logistics in there and put in, deal with things like organics and TSA, et cetera.
Gotcha.
So anyway, thank you everyone for your MOOP efforts. Believe me, it's well appreciated.
Does any of our audience have questions about what we're talking about in this block?
May I say something about leadership? Although, okay, I might be called the theme camp organizer, I'm not a leader. I'm experienced. I've done this too many times. I've been a few times, and and I'm I know what's going on because I've been involved with the planning since the beginning. But by no means am I the all-knowing leader of the camp. People come to me for advice or recommendations, but everyone takes part. I really try hard not to make everyone think that, oh, I have the big ego and I'm the leader. No, everyone takes part, and at any point if someone wants to step up and have a better suggestion in mind, which is very often, go for it. You're now the leader in this instance. So I think it's very important to take a step back. I have been with camps where the leader really thinks they're the uber czar of the camp, and that gets uncomfortable, and eventually they burn out. So yeah, obviously delegation is key, but also just realize other people really do have good suggestions, most likely often better than yours.
I completely agree with you. In Barbie, we have what we call the Peak Council. I do run Barbie, but I've got 4 people that I consider my council members. And whenever there's a problem or a concern, they can come to any one of us, and we'll come together and help make decisions. I also believe a great leader is lead by example. So I'm there setting up just like everybody else. I bring in a trailer, I tow in a trailer just like what I expect from some of our people. And I'm there, I'm the first one there. I mean, of course, but as far as like build week, I would be there as soon as I can so I can coordinate and hand off. I also hate micromanaging. And so I like to depend on other people to help with the internals, with what needs to happen. And I really love that. I love that I don't have to micromanage people, and it gives me a step away from it. And as far as advice and hanging out, yeah, that's what we're here for, is to work together to build the community.
I agree with all of this, yes. When it comes to camp leads who are trying to be the uber czar of everything, it doesn't work. So make sure to delegate. Make sure that you're being kind about it, especially when you're on Playa and before Playa. And take care that you're not trying to build a cult of personality, because nobody likes those, and they always fail. If you want your camp to be coming to Burning Man year after year, eventually, and this might be years down the road, your camp should be able to go without you. And that will show that will indicate that your camp is not a cult of personality, that it has a community behind it, and we'll keep it going. Because on a long enough timeline, all of us as TCOs, there's going to be a year where we can't go for some reason, whether it's kids, family illness, who knows. So have your camp always set up with the aim that while we're going to come to Burning Man every year, probably have it set up so that it's not strictly necessary after year 3 or 4 that you have to come every year. If at the very least to make sure that your camp is set up along the lines I just mentioned. Does any other panelists want to jump in on this leadership, or do we have any audience questions?
Sure, Brian, I'll speak on leadership for a moment. So every camp does it different, or so I believe. So in terms of delegating, task conditions and standards, right? So if I look to our engineers and I say, hey, I need a shower that can safely and environmentally soundly
Goddamn fucking coffee.
accommodate 50 people, that's the task conditions and standards. I don't try and tell that guy how to make an omelet, right? He's going to crack his own eggs and he's going to build that shower to standard. And that takes me out of the weeds trying to micromanage a project. Or, for instance, our food service team. I never even ask them what the menu is. Have a nutritious, enjoyable meal available at 5:30. Brief me on your plan. Oftentimes, at least I've found, I spend a lot of time writing emails and writing checks, particularly when your camp starts growing into food service because you have a whole nother layer of compliance, or with flame effects with an additional layer of compliance on top of the compliance that's already required by Burning Man and BLM. So for instance, I don't know the first thing about how to build a propane anything. How to plumb it, how to turn it on, regulators, valves, zero idea. But I've got a great engineer who does. And fortunately, I look at him and I say, are we good? And he says, yes. And that way I can turn with my clipboard to the Fire Effects Safety Council and give them some comfort that we got things going correctly.
100%. All right, let's move on to camp population. What is the right size for your camp? So with the new regs coming, I believe came in 2023, new camps are limited to 100 by 100 plot, which I believe works out to around 25 people. But to answer the question, the right number of people for your camp equals the number of reasonably worked volunteers you need to provide your camp's interactivity or art, and ensure that you have a build team and a strike team that are separate teams. It's best to not have the only person who should be on build, event, and strike should be the TCO. Having people do both build and strike, it burns them out. So try and require and have enough volunteers that you can have separate build and strike teams. A rule of thumb for me, and this just works for Delhi, is I feel that 70 people is the maximum number of folks who can be reasonably befriend and get to know each other well in 1 week. Certainly there are camps larger than 70, but they usually have a good build related or needed volunteer hours reason for it. And the reason I'm harping on this is because camps that have too many people can suffer from diffusion of responsibility, acculturation problems, and yeah, you can end up with a couple of different camps inside one plot, which is never nice. Large camps can be great too. Oh, I'm sorry. Mark and Mom, I just stepped on your toes. Take it away.
Mark?
Well, I was going to let ladies first, please.
So Barbie is approximately 150 people. It seems to fluctuate from about 120 to 150. We usually take up a space of about 300 by 300. The thing is, we are still broken up though within the village, and village is part of our name. We are a camp, but we like to allow each of the groups, as we mentioned, subcamps within each of those groups to also shine and be part of it. So how big is Barbie? Barbie tends, like I said, to have those numbers. It's what works for us, but it also works for each other. So when we plan our interactivity, some of it is broken up by the groups within Barbie actually running those activities in those groups. So being the size that we are allows people, like to not have to be on all the time. It allows us to share the front of the house and what's going on for interactivity, which is a beautiful model for us. And so the size that we are, of course, it supports what we're doing and it supports each other. You know, we have a mutant vehicle, we have a coffee cafe, we have a full bar that's open hours, we have different interactivities that we do, but also being a larger camp lets us do activities on a greater level. We're involved with some of the citywide things. We do greeters, you know, we're involved with bed, we're involved with some of those link-ins, and being the size we are, it allows us to be part of the greater community. Now, I've only been with Barbie, so that's weird. I don't know what it's like to camp with a smaller camp and be part of a smaller camp. And I know they work great in a lot of instances, but for us, our size works well and gets it done, and we have a great time.
Okay. You know, Brian, it's interesting that the new camps, I guess, that they're throttled to maybe you said 30 campers. Is that
Well, they're limited to 100 by 100 plot by placement, which works out to around 25-ish people.
okay? Which is probably smart because my first camp was 2014 and we thought we'd have 40 people. And when we hit the playa, there was 111 of us. And there was 98 of us were virgins. So I don't know if most people can really appreciate that's a nightmare. 98 virgins out of 111 people. And what's interesting is that the OGs, the burners that have been there multiple times, a lot of them just evaporated. So they kind of left us to our own devices. So having a smaller camp of 25 is actually smart because it causes you to just not to be overexpanded, overextended, and also it would be important at that number to make sure you vet the people that are in your camp to make sure that you're going to work well with them because sometimes shit goes wrong and people have meltdowns. And I've been in the camp of 120. I've been in a camp of 19. And interestingly enough, not to scare anybody, but the camp of 19 people was more of a nightmare than the camp of 111. And it was weird. I go, how could that possibly be? But that's a situation. So knowing your people, your campmates and stuff like that is going to be important. Um, so just, I think again, I'm actually kind of pleased to hear that the org has decided that they don't want to let them get too big. So that's a good thing. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that, Brian. Thanks for sharing that. Um, yeah, camp populations, at 100, at 120, you can also have a great experience, but you can also have the exact opposite. So and every year's different, right? Right, TCOs?
You know, both Brian and Mark, you guys mentioned acculturation, and I think that that's an amazing word and it's an amazing thing to be part of. In Barbie, we actually have a lead who handles acculturation for us, answering questions, checking in with our expected newbies, working with them. Also, when people are coming into Barbie to begin with, they're supposed to be mentored by someone else or with someone else so they understand it's not always coming from me, it's coming from the community or their direct mentor or the person they're working with. But I think acculturation is super important no matter what size you are. And I'm really glad you guys both mentioned that. Just
As far as I agree with all of that, as far as bringing new campers in, it's very important, I feel, that you at the very least have a 15-minute to 30-minute Zoom interview with every new to you incoming camper, so you can talk to them face to face, even if virtually. And it's also imperative to do that so that you make sure that they're a fit for your culture, your camp, and that they understand the obligations and responsibilities that come with being with you. And it's also best if the TCO is not doing that, that you have a vibe team of 2 or 3 people, like a woman, a man, possibly a gay person, just to have some diversity so that it's not just a group of the theme camp owners, organizers, friends, that there's a real vibe team vetting each camper coming in. Because I've noticed that TCOs, like we tend to be service to others oriented and we just want to say yes to everybody. So you need a team to insulate you from that. Bunny, I had your hand up for a little bit.
Yeah, hello. I had a quick question about strike and build. So I've noticed that it's easy to get volunteers to do build, but it's kind of difficult to get volunteers to do strike. And I was wondering if you guys had any like advice or feedback on how to get more volunteers for strike.
Discounts. Discount your camp fee for your builders or your strikers. And for the strikers, now everybody's on strike, to be clear, at the end of the event.
Mhm.
What I mean is the people who stay that extra night into the next day to complete your exit and your MOOP cleanup, your MOOP check, your MOOP test, and then your exit from Playa, those are the strikers I'm talking about.
Mhm.
So discount your camp fee a bit for them, and you'll get the volunteers you need probably.
And I could add, it seems draconian, but we insist everyone who comes is either on build or strike. We don't expect everyone to do both. If you don't do either, you might not want to join us the following year. And so far, everyone understands. You either come early and build a thing, or you stay until we're done, completely done and moved. So that seems to have worked pretty well. A few people think it's a little harsh to be so demanding, but it's worked, one or the other. And it usually works out with people's schedules because people can't be there during build week or whatever.
Some other camps have experimented and have had good results, and we don't do this, but they've had good results with a strike bond where everybody in camp pays like an extra $100 on their camp fee, and you get that $100 back if you stay and help with strike. All right. Any other questions
good one.
about the camp population from our audience or from panelists?
I guess I have a question. I guess does anybody have any good ideas where I could grow my team, grow my camp? Because I'm actually short on people, and yeah, it's gotten a little worse as a few people dropped out and haven't gotten tickets yet, and then changed their mind. So yeah, any
So,
ideas there?
I mean, the number one place to find interested people who might want to help with your project and help build your community, grow your community, is the public Facebook groups that most US and foreign cities have, like, place name burners. It's usually a public group. Go to the local events and meet new burners. A lot of communities like New York, for example, has a new burner happy hour every month. And that's how you find them. You basically have to go be active in your local community before you can expect anybody to follow you into the desert.
I completely agree with that. I love working with the local regional community in Reno. I happen to be in San Francisco today, but it's a matter of getting out there and seeing the people firsthand, interacting with them. Reno Rapid Burners does a lot of volunteering and work like that. And you'll find like-minded people, especially there. I think the Facebook groups get a little lost sometimes. They get a little snarky and scare off people, which I get it. We got to be thick-skinned, but the truth of the matter is I really think we need to rely more on regionals and our regional groups, because that is our community in the end, and bring that with us. So
At Delhi, we do one regional and we do Nevada, and we kind of treat the regional as a feeder for Nevada, and we let the new burners know that, hey, if you like the regional, then you're probably going to like Nevada. It's a great way to test whether Nevada is worth that time and money to them.
I can, if I can also add, we emphasize all the current campers and either some of our past campers who we keep in contact with, spread the word. Everyone has their own social media or their own network of friends. It's kind of like job hunting a bit. The more people that know. So we really ask during the year, if we find we need more people, we really ask everyone to reach out to everyone that you think would be interested. I've got new members for kind of casual conversation with people I never thought would want to go to Burning Man. We start talking about photography, and I go, it's a good place to take pictures. So whenever it comes up, and if everyone reaches out, then you'll find you'll have enough people.
All right, I'm going to move on to pre-planning tools, which is Michael, or Mark, I'm sorry. No, Michael.
Hello, yes. Pre-planning. So I'm a very firm believer in good communications before anything starts, because once you get out there, it all goes to what. So we use a Slack channel, and it's free, which is really nice. And zip tie, if you could show the picture, Thank you. So this is our channel, and you can see we've divided it into. Well, this is our workspace. It's called a workspace, and you can see we've divided it into lots of different channels. So what's nice about this, rather than like a text or other or a Facebook page or whatever, the people who are involved with early passes go into early passes. The people who are on the facade go there. Now, general you can see is that's for everybody. But then we have, as I say, depending on which team you're on, you can, just communicate. So it kind of keeps everything in order. And it's also nice because you can go back and look at stuff, you can share information. So we really use Slack, and people are very Slack, accustomed to Slack. There's all kinds of integrations, which we don't usually employ because we have a lot of people who aren't as technically savvy, but there are many integrations that you can use. And we really found this works really well. You can have as many channels as you want. And I also keep the newbie channel up. Really, really important. There's a channel just for our new campers, which we had 8 last year, which is a lot. And I put all kinds of links and fun stuff, and the wonderful Captain Ron's planning document, spreadsheet, and anything that would help them before they get there. So that's very key. And then thanks, Zip Ties. You can. And then, we also plan meetings and get everyone together as often as we can, including Zoom meetings. We have about, I think, 3 or 4, depending on the need, 3 or 4 meetings during the year, and then we get together in person. So those are, very valuable. So what I'm trying to say is, as much information as you can get out there beforehand is really key. And answering questions, and kind of trying to anticipate things that might go sideways. And you'll be surprised. A lot of newbies come up and go, "What happens if?" And you go, "Oh yeah, I haven't thought of that in a long time. What happens if this happens?" And you can, bring it back. So that's what I have to say on the topic.
I agree with all of that. And I just want to say for pre-planning tools and communication tools in particular, if you pick Slack or pick anything, that you have to pick something that people already have on their phone. If you ask them to install a new app or like learn Discord, if they've never used it before, it ain't going to work. You're going to basically be chasing people who are not getting messages. For Delhi, we use WhatsApp. We used to use Slack, but then they started charging a lot of money for it. WhatsApp has been adding community features, basically making it more Slack-like, and it's free. Basically, whatever tool you use, in addition to email, just pick one so that your communications are not sprawling. Email is hard to get rid of. It's sort of like the fax machine of the internet world right now. But whatever your chatting tool is, just pick one and stick with it. Any other questions about pre-planning tools? All right, moving on to acculturation. And that's Mom and Lou.
Well, I think we kind of covered acculturation, Brian. I don't know if you saw the.
Yeah, 100%. One thing I'll add about acculturation is getting people to embrace your mission, your camp's mission, is a lot easier if your camp's interactivity or art is easy to understand. That your camp is not sprawling and hard to understand what your offering is. Now, I understand that with camps that offer a lot of workshops, that can be challenging, but try to have a story like what's in the what, when, where guide. Try to have a story that you can get out in 1 or 2 sentences so that people understand what your camp offers, so that when you're pitching this to your community, your local burner community, people can get behind it easily without having to, spend a lot of time thinking about what you're offering. All right. Moving on to recruitment. How to find great campers. And that's Michael and Mom, I think. No, Lewis. Lewis and Michael.
Well, I think I kind of covered that based on the person's question, but also you can recruit on Playa. We have a really fun camp that has a piano, and we do human karaoke. And people sometimes do come to us. I'm not really happy in my camp. I'd like to be in your camp. We don't make promises because we don't know them, but we kind of we take their information and get back to them and see if it's a good fit. So there's also that's another way actually on Playa, bringing in people for the next year.
For recruitment, something we ask for references of all of our brand new campers coming into camp, and the question I ask the reference is always the same question: Would you go into the desert with this person for a week and be their neighbor personally? You personally, would you go out there and be next to this person, because we all have friends who are probably great in the default world, but the desert might not be their thing and they might not shine out there. And we want people to shine. We don't want to set them up to fail. So ask your references pertinent questions like that, basically checking beforehand if especially if the reference is a burner already, whether they think the new person can handle it, because we want people to shine out there.
And so for new people, we ask them to join a Zoom, and we gather some of our longer term members who are available, and we do an interview. It's very casual. It's not a job interview. We don't try to put pressure on them, but it's just, we do talk to them and explain. We try to make it sound as difficult as possible to see if it scares them off. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but basically we talk to these people by Zoom so we can have 5 or 6 experienced campers with them, and just kind of feel them out and see if they're still interested and if it's actually a good fit, and explain our dues and explain our processes and explain our rules, which we don't have a lot of, but we have some, and see if they're cool with that. And usually they are, but sometimes people don't want to work so hard, and we have shifts. So interview the people before they show up.
A good way to know if your interview process is working is if people do fail the interview. I mean, I'll never forget when a close friend of mine actually failed their vibe check interview back in 23. And I'm like, okay, you delegated that responsibility and I'm not going to overrule them. And it was, in the long run, I think it was the right decision, because we have friends who are friends in the default world who probably don't need to be out in the desert with us, or
be like, my acculturation person's here.
All right, any other questions or comments on recruitment?
Yeah, I want to throw up a little bit about recruitment. So I don't think it's unique to anything that's already been said, but our camp took obviously the Burning Man core values, the principles, and we still hold that as the canon, but we also added to that some things that are important to our camp and the way that we do business and the way that we interact with each other. We have a lot of former military members, law enforcement, intelligence community personnel in camp. And it was important to me, as we cold recruit people potentially from the internet, that they understand that, and that's something that they're willing to tolerate, because sometimes we can be difficult. And so part of that acculturation is ensuring they understand not only the Burning Man principles, but also what our camp values are. And then, as Dustin offered up, we kind of push the notion that you'll be on shift hard. Because if that's an immediate turnoff to you, then you're probably not for us, because we do require some hard work out of you, either at build strike or during the week. And then, of course, having, like you had mentioned, an acculturation lead, someone who actually does a formal block of instruction on both Burning Man principles and camp core values, and who can be there to answer questions from those individuals throughout the course of the build up to the burn.
Oddly enough, my acculturation lead T-Fire just walked in the door. So I just, like you said, having an acculturation lead. And one of the things you mentioned, someone mentioned before, is to, as the TCO, maybe not be the one who necessarily starts with them. And that's what I count on T-Fire for, who keeps blanking in and out, is to be the first contact, to explain the principles, to really, as Brian said so wonderfully, to see my cultural vision and to make sure that they are on the same page with the cultural vision that we have. Yeah, as far as that goes. So thank you, T-Fire.
One thing I would like to add is, for recruitment, you should be done by late July. If you take campers, new campers, brand new campers after late July or into August, it's 50-50, they're going to be a problem out there. Because if they hadn't found a camp yet, by the time they got to you in late July, early August, there might be a reason for that. Not always, but often. So take people after late July kind of at your own risk, or at least vet them that much more effectively. Any other questions about recruitment before we move on to camp fees and dues?
I have a quick question. So if you, fill out your camp layout and everything and submit it, and then you also later on throughout the year find some new campers who want to join, is there kind of a strategy that you guys use to allow for enough growth in your camp space, or do you anything for that?
If you're limited to a 100 by 100 plot, you should severely limit RVs, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because an RV takes up 12 times.
Mm-hmm.
And in Delhi, for example, we limit RVs to people who are older burners, people with kids, or somebody with a medical problem, and that keeps the RVs down to a manageable number. something I would like to mention early on is if your camp is majority RV, majority of people live in the RV, that means your camp is susceptible to getting addicted to RV money that you have because the money the RVs pay extra to bring an RV, it means that you size your camp's expenditures for that. And then you have to bring that many RVs. Don't be in that position. Try and be a tent camp primarily if you can. And RVs are a necessary evil. Some burners need them. But, do four able-bodied 28-year-olds need an RV? Maybe not. And this is all, every camp has their own happy medium. It's just with Delhi, we have a few rules around bringing an RV.
So we have some rules too, but they're not as stringent. We are noticing a lot more RVs. Of course, I'm out there with a trailer and a lot of people have them. But some of the other considerations, especially because Bunny keeps bringing out like layout and how to coordinate the people as they come in, we are very strict on a couple things. Our street frontage is all interactivity. We do not make a wall of RVs. We find that to be very negative, very off-putting, and we don't want to be negative or off-putting. So even though we have a main shade area for Barbie, we continue down each of our street fronts with other types of interactivity, so as to make sure that it's as welcoming as possible. That means pushing the RVs kind of towards the back. We also utilize RVs differently. We use it for the tent people to help create windbreaks and different sections and give some people little enclaves of their own, like back of the house, because that's important too. Because it's hard to just hang out in the front covered shade area of Barbie all the time. We also like to create these little clusters within our back of the house area that is usually framed by those RVs. So we utilize those. We also like to be respectful of the people that are in the tents and try not to put them next to people with generators or loud, things that are going to be loud so that they can sleep, which is one of the things that Brian mentioned before. Getting a good night's sleep is key. So we do consider that, and there is some flex in the space. As people come in, they might have to realize that they might have to be closer to someone than they thought they were going to be closer to, or farther apart, because because the flex, someone shows up in an RV and you expected them to be there in a tent, that's a problem. But we have to be able to deal with that.
One thing we do, we don't prevent RVs because we do have a lot of older people, but we try, we try to, we do our best to people, rather than having RVs and lots of cars, the RVs often bring in people. So if you're a tent camper, we do our best to hook you up with an RV person, and if the schedules work out. So the RVs, you can load all your stuff into the RV and then and then come with them and leave with them. It's worked out surprisingly a lot of times, and that prevents a car that just sits out there taking space for a week or two. So it takes some logistical juggling, but definitely we've gotten pretty good at RVs being really packed with people and stuff before they get out there.
Yes. All righty, let's move on to camp fees and dues, and that is Michael and Mark.
Oh, all right. Yeah, that can be anything you want, I guess. I know some camps don't charge anything. Like my friends at VW Bus Camp, they have no fees and they have no responsibilities. And it's like, it seems to really work well for them. And I think that you got to figure out what your budget would be. And that's a whole nother big freaking conversation. But you got to figure out you have to estimate what is your expenses going to be. Like I have containers to deal with. I got maintenance of equipment and stuff like that. So my fees for this year, just for example, are probably going to be $500, but it does not include power. People have to start, if you have an RV or something like that, and it's ridiculous. Some camps literally charge for an RV anywhere from $700 to $1,500 for an RV to power that RV. So you got to let your campers know that our camp dues, fees, or I like the word, actually, I want to share this with anybody who wants to take it. Your camp contribution is going to be X. So, and then let them know that that does not include power, because some people think it does. And you're like, nope. And power's gotten ridiculously expensive out there on Playa. And it's unfortunately it's a necessary for my camp anyway, because we're a sound camp. We need power. So It's one of those things. And we have a lot of RVs. So that was my contribution. It was real. Is interesting enough is to use camp contribution as a term instead of fees or dues or whatever, because that kind of there's a lot of expectation that comes along with camp dues. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does.
One thing we've done, which has worked, we've delegated, or someone is brave and takes on the role of treasurer, and so all monies go in and out. In our camp, the person has a PhD in economics, which is pretty handy, but is very good with spreadsheets. But basically, in the past, we didn't really have a really good process for handling these fees, and so what we do is we come up with all our wants versus the needs. We want a porta potty, we want water delivered, etc. And then we figure out the container, all the costs, which is surprisingly a lot. And then we all get together and decide, okay, we have these many people, and this is what we want. And we kind of collectively decide, is everyone willing to chip in $350? And if people balk at that, then we start to scale back. But having one person, and then that person just uses Venmo, and it, there's a level of trust, and it seems to work really well. But I think, it must be hard. It's hard to have group decisions like that in a very large camp. But if you have 30, 40 people, it's doable, and then you can collect the fees, and everyone knows exactly what's going for. You have to be very transparent and very upfront.
Barbie doesn't have big grid power either, which, as you mentioned, is probably the biggest fact of keeping our dues down. We have not raised our dues in quite a few years. We are $200 per person, but we also, like I said, rely a lot on radical self-reliance. And so we don't offer power. We do offer the gray water. We do offer a shower. We do have the full bar. We do have vehicles. We pay for all that. We're able to do that, maybe in keeping our numbers where they are, and also as far as keeps our amount that we pay down. We have switched quite a few things to solar, which has been very beneficial for us, and we are now working on a solar tie-in for the Barbie whorehouse, which is our mutant vehicle. Our showers totally runs on solar. We have solar battery banks, and we feed those into our other items that we use at night, like our neon sign, and for the sleazy bake oven, and those kind of things are all done from reserve solar power. So that's been a great thing. And we have been encouraging our RV users also to bring solar power and to utilize solar power. So that keeps our dues down, frankly. 200 is, I think, great.
So, Mom, do you see a fluctuation in dues? For instance, if you're starting a camp and you have no infrastructure and you need to acquire some things, is there a curve there that as you get those items into your camp box that you can reduce dues in time because now your infrastructure has been purchased? Or do camps typically say, well, we got this extra money on deck, let's do something bigger, something better?
Well, I find also that our dues goes towards maintenance. And so when you start as a small camp and you have the exact size you need for shade, for example, you then can build it up and utilize it. But at the same time, you're going to have problems with, rips happening or things getting bent. So there's always this maintenance amount too that you have to do. But you're right, as you go along and have a history, you begin to build up things, which also, if you're a new camp, keep an eye out for camps that are divesting of items. That's a great way to save money, to make your budget go farther. And as we mentioned, the hub thing too, that'll help you to bring your resources together and keep your costs down. I believe that people are tired of being nickeled and dimed. There was someone recently I was having a discussion with who said that their dues is $1,000. And with ticket prices going up, I just have a hard time raising dues, frankly, as long as we can maintain ourselves. So someone in the chat earlier said, grow slow. And I agree with that 100%. Take the bites that you can get, build up, and build to where you are and where you're comfortable. Does that mean growing or does it mean sustaining? Whatever you can finance and do, I think is great.
Absolutely. In the interest of time, so we can have some general Q&A at the end, I'm just going to quickly go through the last sections. Handling camp drama and being a playa mom and dad to your campers. Pay careful attention to any festering interpersonal drama, and please resolve it as soon as possible before, preferably, or on playa if needed. And discuss crisis resolution management with your campers and give them a moderation option if they just need a ref. This helps prevent burnout. Also, burnout will be its own topic in a panel later this afternoon. Unexpected speed bumps on playa. The most common one actually is weather delaying our entry for build. So have an option, a place to stay, like a build house in Fernley, or Reno, in just in case, because like in 23, for example, we were delayed a day and a half coming in. And you basically don't want that to really throw your burn. You just have options to stay for a place to stay, just in case you're delayed coming into playa.
And Brian, if I can quickly say, have a backup plan too. Don't rely on a couple bringing in some really key supplies, infrastructure, because things happen, they might not make it. So always have a backup for supplies. And
having fun as a Burning Man TCO at Burning Man, you've got to leave camp. Part of being able to leave camp is have day-night managers. These are campers who have burned before, who understand basically how everything in your camp works, and they watch your camp either during the day or at night. And usually this will count as 2 shifts, at least in Delhi it does. And that lets me leave camp, because my first year I didn't leave camp pretty much at all. Be able to delegate. That way you'll want to keep burning too. As for like obvious things that you shouldn't do, please don't take everything you read on Reddit seriously. And another thing you should not do is please don't be the sole decider about purchasing camp infrastructure. Have a team on that, preferably a team with people who have experience with it. What ends up happening is if you're the sole purchaser, is you either purchase the wrong thing or too much of something, and that wouldn't happen if it was a crowdsourced decision generally. With that said, let's open it up to general Q&A from everybody, and take it away. Christopher?
Howdy, everybody. I have a quick question. I've seen a lot of configurations for bathrooms on the playa and just wanted to get the experienced burners' opinions on how they handle bathrooms or if they just go with the defaults.
Well, I mean, there's public bathrooms, there's many on every block. For Delhi, at least, we rent a Porto. It's actually the only thing we rent for the event. And United Site Services is who you rent it from. Their deadline is in early July, but you should really be done talking to them and paid them by June. Ecozoics are cool too, if you can afford them. I think Sierra also might offer, I could be wrong, but we go with United and and I know Ecozoic also offers a compostable toilet. General Q&A. Bunny.
So one of my key missions for our camp in the next coming years is become like really green. Is there like a key source to go for like the solar power information, for composting, for recycling? Like, yeah.
So there's a sustainability hive, a Burning Man hive. There's also some Facebook public group, or maybe private, but they're basically TCO groups for sustainability. I think the number one thing you could do and this is somewhat related, but it speaks to your question, whatever geographic region you're in, if you don't already have a private WhatsApp chat with all of the camp leads you can find from your geographical region in that private camp lead and founder WhatsApp chat, make one. Because in discussing this with other TCOs, you will come up with all kinds of ways to avoid making mistakes and saving money by talking to people who have made those mistakes and spent that money. So just if you're doing this in what feels like isolation, start organizing. New York has a private WhatsApp chat with every camp lead from New York in it. LA, that just started. Start one in your community if it doesn't exist already. General Q&A.
Well, I just want to kind of say as a wrap up, just go for it. Don't be afraid. With all this information we've given and all the, responsibility and all the factors, it seems somewhat overwhelming. But first time I did it, I just kind of jumped in, both feet in the deep end, got, tons of support from all my fellow campers and placement and the org in general. And there's tons of great resources out, online, and just don't be afraid. Just do it. Nothing's going to go seriously wrong. Things might get a little difficult at times, but it's just overall, it's a great experience.
And the
And
magic, sorry, go ahead.
no, that's it.
So the
Do
magic
it.
of Playa, people having transformative experiences out there, it's because of TCOs, facilitators like us, who are trying to make quirky, fun, interesting spaces and holding that space and holding a safe space. And so when people had these spontaneous, serendipitous moments out at Burning Man, it's actually not serendipitous at all. It took a lot of planning, and you guys being on this call and bringing a new theme camp you're making that happen for them, even if they never know your name.
So you mentioned as far as just jump into it and go for it, and I agree with that 100%. I love new people bringing their vision and stuff, but you're not alone. That's why we did this for starters, but you're also not alone on Playa. The rangers are out there to help you if you do have a catastrophic problem, if you need outside or you need outside mediation. Don't forget Zendo is there too. There's even a few other
Hey,
options
Mom,
for
you're
you.
going to get cut off in about 10 seconds. It looks like
Then I'm
we're ending
stopping.
the session.
Thank you guys. Done.
Alrighty, I think this is ended.